Since its publication in 2005, Captivating, Unveiling the Mystery of a Woman's Soul, has dominated the Christian literature markets, selling millions of copies worldwide and rating highly on numerous bestseller charts. Revised and updated in 2010, Captivating continues to sell strongly and is readily available in evangelical Christian bookstores worldwide. The authors, married evangelical ministry partners John and Stacey Eldridge, seem to have captured the hearts and minds of many Christian women. Indeed, Captivating continues to be promoted globally in evangelical institutions and within evangelical subcultures is commonly considered to be a Christian classic. The Eldridges wrote Captivating as a companion to John Eldridge's 2001 publication Wild at Heart, Discovering the Secret of a Man's Soul. Although there's been a significant level of academic engagement with Eldridge's call for Christian men to, quote, reclaim an authentic masculinity, unquote, the same cannot be said for Captivating and its message of what it means to live as a fully alive and feminine woman, a woman who is truly captivating. With this in mind, my presentation seeks to explore the imagery surrounding the depiction of women in Captivating, paying particular attention to the ideologies at play in the production of such imagery, and the demands that these ideologies make on readers in each new encounter with the text. It's my contention that the gendered codifications that lie at the heart of Captivating encode a sexual logic based on heterosexual binary ideals which contribute to an underlying rhetoric of gender violence and rape. Right from the outset of Captivating, readers encounter a blatant gender essentialism which puts forward the idea that there are intrinsic distinctions between men and women. A woman, write the Eldridges, is not the same as a man, thank God. She is designed differently. Differences in needs, desires, personality, and temperament are fundamental to particular biological categories, distinguishing certain men as clearly male and certain women as clearly female. According to the Eldridges, men are the less complicated of the two genders. Men are made for battle. It's the whole thing with boys and weapons. They are warriors, meant as the incarnation of our warrior God. Indeed, they argue, strength is the essence of a man. It is what the world longs to experience from men. The model of femininity, on the other hand, is little more than an inversion of this idealized masculinity. While the authors of Captivating acknowledge the risk of stereotyping in recovering an essential femininity, this risk is instantly dismissed by the claim that there is an essence that God has given to every woman. If men are made to be battle-ready, strong, and courageous, God has endowed women with qualities which are depicted as distinctively feminine. She is inviting, she is vulnerable, she is tender, she embodies mercy. Softness, they write, is key to a woman, and although not all women are mothers, all women are called to mother. That is, insists Stacey Eldridge, to nurture, to train, to educate, to rear. These dualistic distinctions continue as the book proceeds. Where men are presented as strongly individualistic, women are seen as being relational to their cause. Where men seem to be guided by the head, by reason or intellect, a woman's heart is most central to her identity. Your heart, the female reader is told, is the most important thing about you. Where strength is the essence of a man, it is beauty which is the essence of a woman. Nearly all a woman does in her adult life is fueled by her longing to be delighted in, her longing to be beautiful. Where femininity is signified by passivity and vulnerability throughout Captivating, masculinity entails agency, aggression, and domination. The essence of Adam, and by extension all men, is strength in action. For the Eldridges, Adam's agency reflects the agency of God in the world. Passivity, they write, defies his very essence. It violates the way he bears God's image. In contrast to the agency which is granted to men, however, a woman of true beauty is portrayed as a woman completely at rest. Tenderness is vital in a woman. Women who defy this feminine paragon and exhibit strength and independence, however, are disparagingly described by the Eldridges as cursed with the urge to control and dominate men, which, they insist, is not how things are meant to be. In contrast to the demure ideal, these emasculating women wear the pants in the family and make their husbands pee sitting down. They are women who make it, warn the Eldridges, and you, the female reader, must not let them shape you into their view of what a woman is. You'll end up a man. In asserting power and agency, these fallen women have forsaken essential aspects of their femininity, dominating and controlling within their relationships because they fear vulnerability. Far too many women, they write, forfeit their femininity in order to feel safe and in control. Their strength, however, feels more masculine than feminine. There's nothing merciful about them, nothing tender, and certainly nothing beautiful. If female readers are left feeling less than enthusiastic at this passive and vulnerable creature depicted as the feminine ideal, the authors are at pains to assure us that this imagery does not reduce women to doormats. These characteristics of women should not be seen as being weaknesses, they insist, but as things of glory. Indeed, alongside men, women are warriors too, but in a uniquely feminine way. They are strong, yes, but they are also tender. There is mercy in them. There is vulnerability. Thus, while a half-hearted attempt is made to counter some of the negative connotations associated with these feminine characteristics, it is clear that Captivating perpetuates the gender stereotypes which are so deeply entrenched in traditional forms of Christianity. In depicting what it means to be a woman, the Eldridges affirm a reality characterized by two contrasting, discontinuous domains, the masculine realm and the feminine realm. At best, this gendered view of reality might be described as complementarian. Indeed, much is made of the woman standing alongside the man as his ezer konegdo, a Hebrew phrase used by God in Genesis chapter 2 verse 18 to define the purpose of woman's creation in relation to the man. The Eldridges translate this phrase as sustainer beside him. They insist that Eve was created because things were not right without her. Through Eve, the role of ezer is woven into the fabric of your, the female reader's, feminine heart. In this way, it is argued, a woman can offer so much to a man. She can be his ezer, his companion, his inspiration. More than this, however, women need men. Mary had Joseph, Esther had Mordecai, Ruth had Boaz. We will not become the woman God intends us to be without the guidance, counsel, wisdom, strength, and love of good men in our lives. As ezer, a woman is able to speak the words her man so needs to hear. I need you. I need your strength. I believe in you. Women and men are meant to fit beautifully together. Most of the time, however, the gendered distinctions that underlie Captivating are hierarchically charged in a way which gives tacit privilege to the masculine ideal. On more than one occasion, Stacey Eldridge refers to John taking authority over me as my husband and my head. She writes that as women, we long for the protection masculine strength offers. To experience this strength is to let a man speak on our behalf and to intercede for us. Women need men, Eldridge argues, as a godly covering over us to protect us from other men, from the world, and especially from the enemy. Alluding to some of the more problematic New Testament texts relating to the submission of women, she writes that these words are in fact a reflection of God's concern for a woman's protection and spiritual covering. Issues of leadership and authority are intended for the benefit of women, not for their suppression. Eldridge maintains that Christ made man his warrior to offer his strength on behalf of Eve, that is, all women, so that she might flourish. Through the process of separation and distinction, the rhetoric of this book encodes clues for readers that both determine attitudes towards and define appropriate ideas about the relationship between men and women. As the symbolic amalgam of vulnerability, softness, and mercy, women epitomize the subordinate term of the dualistic hierarchies. and function as the other against which the masculine identity is defined. In this value-laden separation, it is not difficult to recognize the foundation for a patriarchal ideology which understands women as objects of male authority. Indeed, this ideological framework works to justify a reality in which women are subservient to men, to whom they must surrender absolute power, and upon whom they are utterly dependent. Although the distinction between these two hierarchical categories is achieved initially through the designation of gender, this vision of reality is also confirmed by the image of God, who is male. As well as being repeatedly depicted in masculine terms as warrior, God is also portrayed as king or warrior king. Through their shared masculinity, men are positively associated with the divine figure, a correlation supported by their common representation as warriors. Indeed, there's an unspoken assumption throughout Captivating that the masculine figure should be understood as the human ideal. Certainly, the human father is the closest reflection of the divine figure for the Eldridges. Every little girl, they write, first learns who God is, what he is like, and how he feels about her from her earthly dad. And it is through their fathers alone that women learn their true value, the value they have as a woman. Because of the masculine designation of God, the male identification with and participation in the divine realm of agency and authority appears here as natural and obvious. Male superiority over women is implicitly promoted as an ontological right stemming from male affiliation with the divine. As social symbolic creatures whose perception of reality is based primarily on preconceived concepts and impressions, readers find inscribed in this book a symbolic world which affirms male superiority. This hierarchical relationship operates at a conceptual level to endorse a vision of reality where the principal mode of interaction is one of domination by men and submission of women. By functioning at a semiotic level, this hierarchy moves beyond a system of classification to become what Anne Primavesi describes as a state of consciousness that has internalized domination and subordination as eternal traits of men and women, respectively. It is this hierarchical perception of reality that provides the foundation for a culture of sexual violence in its vision regarding the proper roles of men and women in contemporary Christian communities. Despite the Eldridges' claim that there is no one-size-fits-all pattern for God's women, these authors go on almost immediately to insist that every woman in her heart of hearts longs for three things: to be romanced, to play an irreplaceable role in a great adventure, and to unveil beauty. While each of these so-called desires is worthy of critical analysis, for the purposes of today's presentation, I'll focus on the claim that not only do all women long for romance, we're wired for it. In detailing the characteristics of an idealized loving partnership, God is portrayed as the great romancer, the ultimate male lover wooing the female reader. Readers are instructed to put themselves in a scene where you are the beauty and God is the lover. Let him romance you, write the Eldridges. It's okay, they assure those experiencing discomfort at this notion. It's quite biblical. Jesus calls himself the bridegroom, and bridegroom simply means lover. The language used to describe this romantic relationship is highly sexualized and full of innuendo. God's romance, writes Stacy, is immensely personal. He knows what takes your breath away. He knows what makes your heart beat faster. Female readers are invited to ask God as lover to come for them. We allow the ache for God to swell into a longing prayer, and he comes, dear hearts, he does come. At times, Stacy's tone resembles that which can be found in teenage romance literature. God doesn't just love me, he loved me. Intimately, personally, completely. This fiery and passionate God wants to be known as only lovers can know each other. God's romantic relationship with the female reader of Captivating is modelled on the troubling metaphorical marriage of Hosea and Gomer in the biblical book of Hosea. Responding to Gomer's pursuit of other lovers, Hosea forcibly restrains his wife, hedging her way with thorns and building a wall against her so that she cannot find her way. He threatens to strip her naked and publicly expose her for being a whore. He warns her that he will kill her with thirst and take back everything he has given her, leaving her naked and empty. He will eliminate whatever illusion of security she had found in her life away from him. By destroying her self-esteem and violating her bodily integrity, Hosea, the husband, God, is finally able to obtain his wife's, Israel's, Gomer's, submission. Worn down and weary, Gomer finally returns to her husband, for it was better with me then, with him, than now. And it is only after she is physically and emotionally overwhelmed that Hosea's conduct shifts from intimidation to seduction. His threats of violence are replaced by the tender promise of romance. Like Gomer, the Eldridges write, most women mistrust God and so seek to find life on their own terms. Echoing the actions of Hosea, however, God will thwart our efforts to find life apart from him, so that he alone can have our heart's attention. God's firm but gentle hand can be seen in a woman's life, they claim, hemming her in and wearying her out until, wounded and aching, she turns back to him in thirsty longing, whereupon he begins to woo her. Thus God will often deny women every other source of comfort so that he alone can have her attention. He'll make what was once a great job miserable if it was in her career that she found shelter, they write. Wherever it is we have sought life apart from him, he disrupts our plans, our way of life. It is only when the woman has surrendered completely that God, like Hosea, allures her, leading her into the desert and speaking tenderly to her. Finally, in this divine act of romance, the woman is able to see God as the pursuer of her heart, as her lover. The depiction of romance in this book is particularly troubling on a number of levels. At the outset, it's important to note that what is presented as Hosea's faithful commitment to Gomer is in fact part of a broader scene depicting spousal and sexual abuse. In an apparent attempt to teach his wife a lesson, Hosea, the husband, God, employs strategies which are physically abusive, psychologically manipulative, and sexually humiliating, as he actively abuses her before showering her with affection once her subjugation is assured. What is more, throughout this entire scene, only the husband, God, Hosea, is granted the power of speech. At no point is his wife, Gomer, Israel's perspective presented. She is utterly silenced. Foundational to this depiction of marriage in Hosea is the patriarchal ideology which has already been identified as characterizing the relational dynamics in Captivating. This model of marriage is dependent upon the hierarchical stratification of power which enables the dominant male partner to control his subordinate female counterpart. Included in this ideological framework is the notion of a woman as the object of male ownership. Considered little more than an item of property, she must willingly submit to the absolute power of her husband, who may use her as he desires. Perhaps unsurprisingly, this perspective also affirms the right of the dominant partner to discipline and punish his subordinate, justifying the use of violence to maintain authority and to ensure compliance and fidelity. When read in the context of rape culture and gender violence, the Eldridge's description of the romantic relationship between God and female reader, modelled upon Hosea's marriage metaphor, clearly fits the profile of an abusive relationship, mirroring real-life scenarios of domestic abuse. Beneath their rhetoric of romance lies the patriarchal language of intimidation and coercion by a husband, God, who appears determined to assert authority over his deviant wife, the female reader. Throughout Captivating, they describe God's behaviour in ways that are comparable to that of a spousal batterer, who demands passivity and submission from his partner. In attempting to thwart our efforts to find life apart from him, God appears intensely possessive and jealous of anything that directs the female reader's gaze away from him. As outlined above, he insists upon her undivided attention, isolating her and depriving her of life's necessities in order to attain this servile loyalty. Although the Eldridges present this behaviour as caring and considerate, the divine attention here seems both intrusive and smothering. God, like Hosea, thus appears here as a domineering figure with a fierce possessiveness to that which he perceives to be his property. This is a deity who seems unprepared to cope with romantic rejection, who aggressively pursues the devotion of his subordinates as his fundamental right. And, like human batterers, the god of captivating needs to maintain that dominance and authority in his romantic relationship by his use of physical strength and violence. While God is associated with these so-called masculine traits, the female reader is urged to embody the feminine attributes of obedience and submission. He, God, loves your vulnerability, as any lover does. Captivating encourages female readers to be passive and helpless, thus idealizing their state of learned helplessness, a condition which occurs when a person comes to believe that they are utterly powerless to effect change, particularly in a situation of abuse. Like many battered women, the reader's ability to challenge her divine abuser is made all the more difficult by the kindness and love he shows her alongside the violence. In both the Book of Hosea and Captivating, God is thus seen to have a dual personality, his behaviour oscillating between abuse and affection. Having violently established the woman's subservience, a period of calm ensues, where God rewards her with romance. In the same way that God's conduct shifts from violence to seduction in Captivating, so a real-life perpetrator will often attempt to woo the woman in his life by showering her with extravagant gifts and acts of love following an incident of acute brutality. Reading Captivating with this in mind, it's extremely difficult to affirm with the Eldridges that such divine conduct is the ultimate example of romance. Indeed, in light of this analysis, the Eldridges' portrayal of God as the great romancer is deeply disturbing. In neglecting to acknowledge the violence inherent in the Eldridges' description of both human and divine relationships, readers risk missing the world-creating potential of the rhetoric used throughout Captivating. This book's conception of God, for example, will have far-reaching ethical implications for male readers who reproduce in action those violent characteristics that are seemingly upheld as positive attributes of the divine figure. Uncritical acceptance of God's behaviour here runs the risk of promoting a reality where men, in an attempt to emulate the divine conduct, abusively pursue women who become the object of their desire. Similarly, women who internalize the messages of this book are more likely to accept as normal a patriarchal idea of marriage, which stresses hierarchy and domination, where the male partner has the right to violently reprimand his wife in order to affirm his authority in their relationship. By modelling this understanding of romantic partnership on the biblical marriage of Hosea, God, and Gomer, Israel, this notion of relationality is given authority at the highest level. How then, ask the Eldridges, does a woman best love a man? The answer, according to Stacey Eldridge, is simple. Entice him, inspire him, allure him. In keeping with the mode of encounter depicted between God and woman, the relationship between men and women is portrayed as an interaction between male pursuer and female pursued. Not only is this dynamic affirmed by the authors of Captivating, but it is presented as something women desperately long for. Every woman, they claim, wants to be seen, wanted, and pursued. As pursuers, men need someone to fight for, a beauty to rescue. Again, the notion of being sought after and fought for, of possessing a beauty that is worth fighting for, is put forward as the ultimate desire of every woman. Where a man's strength is used to fight for a beauty to rescue, a woman's vulnerability is employed to allure a man. According to the Eldridges, men find female vulnerability deeply enticing, as Stacey discovered in opening herself to her husband, John. In my vulnerability to him, I had never been more feminine or more beautiful. Although heavily disguised beneath the Eldridge's rhetoric of romance, this relational interaction again reinforces patriarchal power dynamics and affirms the use of male power and aggression against women. Like the relationship between God and women, the interaction between men and women described in this book is profoundly problematic. The conceptual framework employed in this text is characterized by extreme inequality, violent power over relationships, and a logic of domination. The authors exploit a range of traits commonly associated with women, vulnerability and ability to be conquered, and set them in dualistic opposition to those traits most commonly associated with men, strength, control, and the ability to conquer. The rhetoric encoded in these relationships presents as normal the domination of women by men, and the fact that these underlying dynamics are unspoken and assumed adds to their power, as the reader is expected to agree with this presentation of reality as both natural and obvious. The unavoidable consequence of the gendered interaction seen throughout this book is a situation where power, domination, and sexual aggression are combined to create an act of violence. In other words, the gendered codifications embedded within Captivating contribute to a rhetoric of gender violence. As this analysis has shown, it's clear that the rhetoric employed throughout Captivating provides, at the very least, a conceptual basis which normalizes gender violence, enabling it to thrive in Christian relationships. The fact that Captivating is such a widely read and well-acclaimed book means that it's imperative to expose and dismantle the patriarchal ideals that lie at its heart. Naming the violence embedded within this text is vital because, with this acknowledgement, comes the potential for resisting the powerful misogynistic undercurrents of this bestseller. It is to challenge the harmful ideologies that extend beyond the words on its page to negatively impact the lives of readers. It is an act of resistance, an attempt to give voice to this rhetoric of violence and to stand against its potential to create a world in which gender violence is normalized and even encouraged within wider frameworks of Christian discourse. Thank you.